You are watching the world 24/7 on the NDTV network. I'm Parmeshwar Bawa. Let's begin with the top stories you need to know. Hamas has accepted a draft agreement for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and the release of dozens of hostages, but more than 5 hours after talks began, there was still no word on an outcome. Impeached South Korean President Yoon has been arrested. An anti-graft agency investigating his 3rd of December martial law attempt said in its latest statement. The US markets watchdog has filed a lawsuit against Elon Musk, alleging he failed to disclose that he had amassed a stake in Twitter, allowing him to buy shares at artificially low prices. The UK government has relaunched free trade agreement talks with India, aiming to enhance their bilateral relationship, focusing on trade as well as green technologies. Powerful winds are expected back in the Los Angeles area, threatening to reverse some of the progress made in the battle against deadly wildfires that have destroyed entire neighborhoods and forced tens of thousands to flee their homes. Sheikh Hasinas Niece, Tulip Siddiq, resigned as a minister in Sir Keir Starmer's Labour government after weeks of damaging headlines about how she had allegedly benefited financially from her links to her aunt's Awami League. Well, breaking news coming in at the moment. Impeached South Korean President Yoon has been arrested. This is what an anti-graft agency that was investigating his 3rd of December martial law attempt has said in its latest statement. South Korea's president has been arrested after a dramatic morning. In fact, we have visuals coming in from there that show what happened, how law officials actually got into his residence. Well, in South Korea, investigators have taken drastic steps to reach the residence of impeached President Yoon, and now law agencies confirm that he has in fact been arrested. As of 7:30 a.m. local time, dozens of police officials were inside the compound attempting to arrest Mr. Yoon for his controversial and short-lived imposition of martial law. The other crucial story we're tracking: after months of back and forth and several rounds of failed talks, mediator Qatar has revealed that Israel and Hamas are at their closest point yet to a ceasefire and hostage release deal. In fact, reports indicate that Hamas has accepted a draft agreement for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and the release of dozens of hostages. Officials have expressed mounting optimism that a deal could be reached ahead of 20th of January, which is the inauguration date for Donald Trump to take over for his second term. However, back home, Netanyahu actually faces an uphill task as Israeli far-right police minister Itamar Ben-Gvir threatened to quit Netanyahu's government if he agrees to a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal.
I believe we will get a ceasefire. And whether we get there in the remaining days of our administration or after January 20th, I believe the deal will follow closely the terms of the agreement that President Biden put forward last May and our administration rallied the world behind. We believe that the Palestinian Authority should invite international partners to help establish and run an interim administration with responsibility for key civil sectors in Gaza like banking, water, energy, health, civil coordination with Israel. The international community would provide funding, technical support, and oversight. The interim administration would include Palestinians from Gaza and representatives from the PA, selected following meaningful consultation with communities in Gaza, and would hand over complete responsibility to a fully reformed PA administration.
Israel and Hamas appear to be on the cusp of a ceasefire deal that would end over 15 months of war. Hamas officials say they've accepted a draft of the proposal. The Israelis say there still is no deal, but they're also voicing optimism as final details are being worked out. Qatar, the Mideast country that's been mediating the talks, say the sides have not been this close to an agreement in months. The proposal lays out a multi-stage process for ending a war that has killed over 46,000 Palestinians, 1,600 Israelis, and also caused widespread devastation in Gaza. The first stage calls for a gradual pullback of Israeli troops from most of Gaza over 6 weeks in exchange for the freedom of 33 hostages held by Hamas. Displaced Palestinians would also begin to go home, and aid would pour into Gaza. The sides also would quickly enter negotiations on a second phase meant to end the war altogether. That would mean a final pullout of remaining Israeli troops and the return of roughly 70 other hostages. Now, it remains unclear who will run Gaza in the long run and who is going to pay for the badly needed reconstruction. But negotiators are hoping that this initial ceasefire, this initial phase, will create the momentum to address these deeper issues.
By the way, in a major legal move, the US Securities and Exchange Commission is suing Elon Musk, accusing the billionaire of failing to disclose his growing stake in Twitter. Now, according to the SEC, Musk's delay in reporting his purchases allowed him to buy shares at artificially low prices, saving him an estimated $150 million. Under SEC rules, investors who buy more than 5% of a company's shares must report it within 10 days. Elon Musk, however, reportedly waited 21 days before making his filing. But in response, Musk did not hold back, calling the SEC a totally broken organization in a post on X. Well, let's turn our attention now to news from the UK. Well, Tulip Siddiq, niece of Bangladesh's Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, the Prime Minister who is now fled and is in India on exile, has resigned from her position as a minister in Sir Keir Starmer's Labour government. This actually comes after weeks of headlines linking her to financial benefits from her family's political connections. But Tulip, who served as the Economic Secretary to the Treasury and City Minister, has faced accusations of corruption. These charges were notably pushed by figures like Mohammed Yunus in Dhaka, who used her resignation to target her aunt's government. Reports highlighted Siddique's ties to Bangladeshi businessmen, alleging they gifted her properties in an attempt to gain favour with Sheikh Hasina's government. But despite her close friendship with the UK Prime Minister and representing a neighbouring constituency, the controversy over the alleged gifts made her position untenable. Here are the details for you.
Well, this is very embarrassing for the government of Keir Starmer. Ministers for days have been saying that they would wait for the ethics advisor Laurie Magnus to report before any decision would be made. And Tulip Siddiq says that Laurie Magnus, the ethics watchdog, the ethics guru, has reported back and said that he has found no wrongdoing when it comes to her financial and property interests related to Bangladesh. He has said, though, that she could potentially have provided more documentation and that it was regrettable that she had not done so. But Tulip Siddiq, in her resignation letter to the Prime Minister Keir Starmer, said that she was sad to be leaving government, that she was pleased to not have been found to have breached the ministerial code, but nonetheless didn't want to become what she called a distraction to the government at this time, perhaps signalling there that she is well aware that the investigations in Bangladesh into her various arrangements continue and could well continue to be that distraction that she speaks of. The opposition Conservatives have for some time been calling for Tulip Siddiq to either resign or be sacked. They pointed out that in her role as a corruption minister in the UK government, that it was untenable for her to remain in position while there was effectively a corruption investigation into her underway in Bangladesh. Keir Starmer has now lost several senior figures in his government in just 6 and a bit months since taking office. This is not normally what you would expect from a new incoming government with a large parliamentary majority, but before Tulip Siddiq, his chief of staff, Sue Gray, was forced out of her post. He also lost his transport secretary, Louise Haigh, over a previous conviction that was revealed that she had had at the time. So difficult for Keir Starmer and his government at a time when they are trying to project stability and competence. An economic crisis is swirling around the UK economy at the moment. The Finance Minister Rachel Reeves has come under fierce criticism over a recent trip to China and moves that she made in her budget back in October. Polling suggests that Labour are not far ahead now of the opposition Reform Party led by Nigel Farage. That will be worrying them too. But Tulip Siddiq stepping down, insisting as she does so that she's been found not to have been guilty of any breach of the UK government's ministerial code. But she leaves her job in government, with Keir Starmer in his recognition of her resignation letter signalling that at some point in the future he might try to welcome her back into the fold. But for now, she is gone from government. Ollie Barrett, NDTV, London.
In staying with updates from the United Kingdom, the government has told Parliament that the free trade agreement talks with India have been relaunched to deliver a joint ambition of taking the bilateral relationship to even greater heights. During a debate on UK economic growth in the House of Commons, British Indian Labour MP Jeevan Sandher asked Foreign Secretary David Lammy about the steps being taken to get a good UK-India trade deal over the line. So the FTA, which saw negotiations paused for elections, is set to resume, potentially boosting the £42 billion trade. Well, with that, let's turn our attention now to the United States. A particularly dangerous situation warning was in effect for parts of Southern California, with officials warning that strong wind gusts mixed with low humidity will create an extremely critical fire weather condition, and 4 large fires are currently burning in Los Angeles and Ventura counties, according to the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. I must inform you that tragically at least 24 people have been killed in the fires and more than a dozen remain missing. Those numbers are expected to rise as officials have warned, and more than 12,000 structures have been damaged or destroyed, and as we speak, around 88,000 people remain under mandatory evacuation orders. By the way, with 5 days to go for US President-elect Donald Trump to enter the White House, with Foreign Minister Dr. Jaishankar set to attend his swearing-in on the 20th of January, uncertainty looms around the impact of his return on India and whether the Modi-Trump relationship will actually shield New Delhi from tariffs, the impact of sanction on Russian oil, and more. This report explains the details.
Trump has left the building.
We can now project the winner of the presidential race. Donald Trump wins the presidency.
What started off as unlikely, impossible, is now reality.
The who's who of world politics are expected to descend on Washington when Donald Trump is sworn in as the 47th President of the United States.
America great again.
Sticking to his brand of politics, Trump has broken another tradition by inviting many head of states to the January 20th event.
And I will never, ever let you down.
Some of the biggest names to be invited include Chinese President Xi Jinping, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, Argentina's President Javier Milei, and El Salvador's Nayib Bukele. So far, it isn't clear whether Prime Minister Narendra Modi would be attending the inauguration, as External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar looks set to represent India. India would be watching closely as Trump ascends to arguably the most powerful position in the world. There are a few worrisome issues as far as the bilateral ties are concerned. The biggest one seems to be Trump's frequent threats of a tariff wall on Indian imports to the US.
We will not fail.
According to a report by Boston Consulting Group, if the incoming administration goes ahead with the proposed tariff hikes, it would result in an additional duty burden of $14.6 billion on India's exports to the US. All eyes are also on the recent sweeping and aggressive sanctions imposed by the US on Russia's oil trade. According to reports, Indian refiners are seeking alternative fuel supplies as they adapt to severe new US sanctions on Russian producers. What Trump administration does with these strict measures remains to be seen. It is too soon to speculate how Trump's behavior towards India would be when he takes the center stage. Outgoing US Ambassador to India, Eric Garcetti, has said that direct conversations between Trump and Prime Minister Modi will define the next chapter of the India-US ties and not an invitation to a crowded swearing-in ceremony. Vishal Vivek reports for NDTV World.
Well, let's switch tracks now. NATO is stepping up efforts to protect undersea cables in the Baltic Sea. The Alliance's Secretary General has announced the launch of a new mission called Baltic Sentry. Now, this operation will actually deploy frigates, maritime patrol aircraft, and naval drones to enhance surveillance and provide greater deterrence. The NATO Secretary General has also emphasized the critical importance of these undersea cables, which carry over 95% of global internet traffic. Spanning about 1.3 million kilometers, they secure an estimated $10 trillion in daily financial transactions. You heard that right, that's $10 trillion in daily financial transactions. This mission highlights NATO's commitment to safeguarding key infrastructure in an increasingly interconnected world. By the way, as he bids farewell, US President Joe Biden has signed a new executive order aimed at speeding up the development of artificial intelligence infrastructure in the United States. This ambitious move is designed to enable the rapid construction of large-scale data centers and clean power facilities, both critical for supporting the growth of AI technology. But this order directs federal agencies to accelerate AI infrastructure development on government sites while ensuring developers meet new requirements and safeguards. It also pushes for federal sites to host AI data centers and clean power facilities with support for connecting them to the electric grid and streamlining the permitting process. As AI technology, including popular chatbots and generative tools, demands increasingly powerful computation, the order aims to keep the US competitive in the global race for AI advancement. For further clarity, we have with us David K. Johnston on the matter. Thanks so much, David, as always, for making time for us. Now, with the US government playing a key role in AI infrastructure, what are the potential challenges of having federal agencies dictate, A, the pace and the direction of AI development in the US?
Well, a lot of the concern is going to be about AI developments being sold to hostile foreign governments, China in particular, but also North Korea and Russia and Iran. And now this is technology that's being developed all around the world. So placing controls, limiting exports, I'm not sure will be particularly effective, but you certainly need to have laid down, these are the rules, so that if there are violations or threats, you can address them. The US government also has been investing in technologies that will advance AI in competition with India and other countries. But I think this is part of Joe Biden's effort to make sure that in addition to leaving the strongest economy in the world, he's also leaving a government that has thought through some of the technological challenges going forward.
Also, how will this affect the influence of private companies like Google, Amazon, and Microsoft? Could this shift lead to a more centralized approach to AI development?
I don't think that's the intent here. The government wants to know what you're doing at these companies. Right. They don't want to take charge of them itself. On the other hand, a lot of the research that makes quantum computers a possibility, we don't really have them yet, was taxpayer investments. Taxpayer investments in technology are responsible for 1/2 of all the economic growth in America since the end of World War II, 80 years ago. So the government has a big interest in what's done with the knowledge that's built from taxpayer investments in physics.
Well, David, thanks so much for joining us with your quick comments. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates. As always, news and updates continue right here on NDTV 24/7. We're stepping into a very short break for now. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. Well, the Princess of Wales has revealed she is in remission from cancer after making an emotional return to the hospital where she received treatment. In a message posted on social media, Catherine spoke of her relief and said she remained focused on her recovery. In other news, Sri Lankan President Anura Kumara Dissanayake, who arrived in Beijing on Tuesday on a 4-day visit, will hold talks with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping today, after which the two sides are expected to sign agreements. This is Mr. Disanayake's second overseas visit, the first being to India since assuming office in September last year. But Sri Lankan officials said Mr. Dissanayake will meet Xi Jinping today to discuss bilateral ties, after which the two sides are expected to sign agreements to deepen the relations. Now, from the world of technology, how often do you find yourself following the parody account of a celebrity on X, ever since the verified take is up for sale? Well, X has created a solution for you. Ishan joins us to tell us more about it.
X, formerly known as Twitter, has rolled out parody account labels to address growing concerns over online impersonation. ये लेबल्स क्लियरली इंडिकेट करेंगे जब कोई अकाउंट किसी दूसरे अकाउंट को मिमिक करेगा फॉर कॉमेडिक और सटायरिकल पर्पसेस, मेकिंग इट इजियर फॉर यूजर्स टू डिस्टिंग्विश पैरोडी फ्रॉम लेजिटिमेट अकाउंट्स. जो अकाउंट्स पैरोडी लेबल्स प्रॉपर्ली यूज नहीं करेंगे उनको पेनल्टीज और अकाउंट सस्पेंशन फेस करनी पड़ सकती है. With this update, X continues its push for a safer, more transparent social media environment under Elon Musk's leadership. For more such news, keep following NDTV.
Thank you for investing your time and watching this edition of The World 24/7. As always, we keep tracking the latest developments for you. Do stay tuned.